mess it up. I think I wrote tough to puff on here, so everybody's bulky, in case you didn't know what you were doing. So I'm Chandler. I'm one of the owners here at CrossFit StoneAgeFuel. My background was, in about 2008, I decided it would be really cool to be a biochemist. And fast forward to where we are now, wasn't that cool. It was a lot of hard work and no sleep. But I still had a good time and I learned a lot on the way. Helped me meet a lot of cool people like Rob Wolf and Steph over here. Kind of developed a program where we helped a lot of people get through a lot of challenges. And we found a point to where people either make it or break it. And it's usually 21 days for new people and 30 days for people who are kind of into it. Anything beyond that and they kind of fall off the wagon and you never want to do it again. And at the end of it, you wake up with a cheeseburger wrapper on your face and you don't know how you got there, but you know it wasn't paleo. So, it's StoneAgeFuel. It's the Tough to Puff challenge that I wrote here, which it's not. It's actually the Fluff to Tuff challenge. So, the way we're doing it, we call it the evolutionary health diet or the paleo lifestyle. Because anytime we say diet, everyone's like, oh no, that's bad. You don't diet. Just eat the way you're eating because you're awesome. So what we want to do is change the way you think about it. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. So you start off with this challenge. It's more of a strict way of eating. And then once we get finished with the challenge, we go into more of we have a little bit more leeway. We want you to get used to eating this way and make it comfortable and everyone capable of doing it for a long period of time so you don't end it and hate it and never do it again. And you're like, oh yeah, I lost like 1 million pounds, but then I gained it all back. We want to make sure you guys are in good keto for the rest of your lives. So a little bit about the paleo diet. It's eating the way we're well adapted to eat. You're avoiding gluten, processed foods, soy, dairy, and legumes, and that includes peanuts. Because a lot of these things have a lot of issues associated with autoimmune disease and allergies. So we want to reduce the potential for allergies and rid the body of inflammation. We are a chronically inflamed society and we want to reverse that. So basically what you're allowed to eat is meat, vegetables, and sometimes you get nuts and fruit, depending on what kind of protocol you're on. And I'll talk about the protocols in a little bit. So for the challenge, if you guys all look like you're ready to take the challenge, you guys are all fired up, you're like, yeah, let's take my measurements and we're going to be awesome through 30 days. Eric is shaking her head already. So what it is, we're doing a 30-day strict challenge or 21 days for the newer people who signed up. It's going to be no cheating for the 30 days. You're going to be strict 100% of the time. So that way you don't get that one cheat day and then that one cheat day turns into two turns into 30, 32 turns into who knows. 2 years later you're like, I think I'll try paleo again. So what we're doing is we want to get past the first month. That's your biggest hurdle. If you can get past the first 4 weeks, you'll be fine and you'll be pretty good at the diet, you'll be well accustomed to it, and you'll be able to do your own thing with it. Your first 4 weeks are they're pretty sluggish, kind of miserable because your body's adapting from this high carbohydrate roller coaster diet to more of a fat-based, protein-based diet. And it's a tough adjustment, but the biggest thing you have to remember is stick with it. And we're here for you the whole way. You'll have our email addresses. You can email us and complain if you want to, or ask questions, or just say, this diet sucks, I hate you guys. And then we'll help you through it. We'll email back and say, you can do it though, and I'll have a picture like this saying, you're awesome. So what we want to,
Chandler says.
yeah, Chandler says, and I'll get you a t-shirt. So what we want to do is, one of the big things when you're shopping is you want to stick to the outer perimeter of the grocery store. The inside is where all the breads and all the ice creams and all the kind of delicious food is. But if you stick to the outer perimeter, you can get all your meats, vegetables, and all that good stuff. And you don't even have to go in and get tempted to buy like Twinkies and Hostess products. So, and the last thing I like to go, and also actually we were in Smith's last night, and they have a really, really good selection of grass-fed meat and organic produce now. I was really impressed by it, so we put them in here as one of the go-to places. The grass-fed meat selection's big. They have a lot of organic stuff. I think they're trying to push it right now too, so there's a lot of coupons and things out there to encourage people to buy it. So we should all go buy it so they don't take it away because nobody buys it. Last thing I like to say about the challenge is we have this adage where we have to eat like 14 times a day or you're not going to be in a fat burning state. There's no scientific evidence that really backs that. It's just kind of something that's been perpetuated by the personal training industry because those guys flex their muscles and everyone's like, oh, I want to look like that. They eat 17 times a day, so I need to as well. So what we do is we just eat when we're hungry, we don't when we're not. So if you wake up and you're hungry, eat. If you're not, wait until you're hungry and then eat again. What do we eat? So the next part we're going to talk about is the foods we can eat and why we can eat them. So we want to eat meat. Meat is good. We're not vegetarians here or vegans. I don't think anybody is, are they? Makes this a lot easier. Yes. So our meat should be grass-fed or grass-finished if we can. It doesn't necessarily have to in the beef category. That's an excuse number one. So I can't eat that because it's not grass-fed, grass-finished. Eat the best way you can. So if it's grass-fed, grass-finished, perfect. If not, do it anyway. You're still going to be better off than eating like a box of crackers. So your meat should be ideally grass-fed, grass-finished because it's higher in omega-3s, lower in omega-6s. Grain-fed cattle is horrible for you. They're also treated pretty poorly. But we want to look at free-range turkeys, free-range chicken, wild-caught fish. Farm-raised fish is horrible. They're in a pen about the size of this box, and it's just full of feces and corn. And they don't live a very good life in those little boxes. And their omega-6 content is really, really high. And in case you're not familiar with the omega-6, omega-3 ratios, omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, so they reduce inflammation in your body. Omega-6s tend to be more pro-inflammatory. And the reason they're pro-inflammatory is because we take a lot of them in our daily lives. So it's in all your vegetable oils, everything we pretty much eat that comes from a box. So our ratio right now is probably like 64:1, whereas you want to be more of like a 1:4, 4:1. So we've really, really messed that up in our society in the way we eat. We want to make sure everything's preferably raised without antibiotics and growth promoters, so try to find organic produce, or even better if you have a local farmer and you can go out and watch what they do and talk to them and ask them questions. That's your best go-to. That's even better than organic in my opinion. I think organic sometimes gets a little political, but local stays perfect. The local farmers sometimes can't afford to get the organic label, but sometimes their practices are a lot better. And we'll come up with a list of a bunch of local people. I know Beth went out and saw a couple people, so we'll try to get everybody going with that stuff too. Vegetables, so unlimited vegetables. You want to taste the rainbow. So eat like a certain kind this week, next week eat a bunch of new ones, next week eat different ones. Try to eat what's in season. So follow the seasons. That helps a lot. You want to taste the rainbow, eat a big variety, and make sure these are from your local farmers as well if you can find someone who has all this stuff. I know Girl Farm has some stuff. There's a bunch of local people who do it. Sometimes they're hard to find, but once you do, you're set. So fruits, if we're on a weight loss protocol, and we'll talk about this later, we really, really need to limit our fruits. It's a big thing that hinders our weight loss. Out of all the people Steph and I have worked with in our challenges and things, it's always fruits and nuts that screw up everybody's weight loss. Once we get rid of those, it just like melts off like butter. So if you do eat fruits, it's more of an athletic protocol type thing. You eat mostly berries. Berries and melons are your best choices. So berries, you need like a small handful. If you're on the weight loss protocol, you absolutely have to have something like this. It's a small handful, not like a small handful or a small handful or whatever else you do, or a basketful that looks like a hand. Nothing like that. People get pretty crafty in this. You want to avoid bananas and soft fruits if you're on a weight loss protocol. They're just going to spike your insulin and cause you to go on that roller coaster ride that you don't want to be on, where you're hungry, not hungry, not hungry, tired, sleep. So that's not a good way we want to be. The last thing is, if you're really, really, really relying on fruit, you're taking in a lot of fructose. Fructose tends to metabolize in the liver, and what that can do is it turns into triglycerides, and it can potentially raise your triglyceride levels. So it's not necessarily the fats that are going to raise your triglycerides, it's your fructose-laden drinks. And not necessarily fruit is as bad, but if you're drinking a lot of sugar-filled drinks with the high fructose corn syrup and all that fun stuff. Yes?
I love apples.
Apples are... So we want to limit apples if you're trying to lose weight. If you're not, they're okay. Maybe one a day. What I say is eat it, and if you're not seeing results, take that apple away and see if you start seeing results. One a day is probably not going to hinder it, especially if you're training in here. It'll be okay. Try to eat that apple after your workout.
Oh.
Yes.
On the meat subject though, what if in your culture you eat a lot of pork? Is that
Pork,
okay?
so pork's fine.
Okay.
If you have an issue with inflammation or an autoimmune disease, you want to avoid pork because it's a pro-inflammatory meat. So if you don't have any autoimmune issues like leaky gut, celiac disease, psoriasis, or anything like that, then you're going to be okay on the pork. Right, next one. So we have this new big thing that's really common. You see on the labels, low glycemic. So it means, oh yeah, drink the whole bottle. You can eat all that agave syrup. Low glycemic means high fructose. So I'd rather you take table sugar than a low glycemic sweetener. So all that stuff like agave syrup, all these low-glycemic sweeteners that sound like they're amazing are going to potentially affect your triglyceride levels because they're 99% fructose. And fructose is not something we want to take in a lot of. You're not going to get a lot of the fructose. Fruit sugar is fructose, but you're not going to get a lot of it out of fruits like you are from like a sweetener. Those are going to affect you a lot more. And then next is nuts and seeds. So if you're on a weight loss protocol, no nuts, no seeds. It's easy to take in a bucket of almonds and be like, oh, I'm not losing weight, but I ate 5,000 calories in almonds on accident today. And then you're like, oh man, then I look at it and I'm like, see, here's what we did wrong. And then we show you and we erase it out of your book, and then you're like, I lost 20 pounds this week. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. So if we do choose nuts, it's more people on the athletic style protocol who aren't looking to lose weight, but looking to maintain or even gain a little bit of weight. The nuts we want to look for are macadamia nuts, because they have a 6-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s, which is almost ideal, and walnuts, because they're about a 4-to-1 ratio. All other nuts have something like a 15-to-1 or really, really bad ranges in the omega-6, omega-3 ratio. So we don't really want to really take in any other nuts. All seeds are super high in omega-6, so just avoid seeds, like your pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, anything like that, even though they're sometimes delicious. And one big thing we recommend everyone is to limit your nut consumption. They have a really, really big potential to cause an autoimmune issue or to cause an issue in your bowels. So some people who have the issue will take in nuts and all of a sudden they have a stomach ache and they're on the toilet. And that's because it's stimulating the process in your body. I have issues with nuts. I don't really like them. They bother me when I take them in. And then finally, I like to talk about coconut because I think it's the holy grail. Coconut's amazing. Like that, yeah, you just hold it up. You can have that picture with the coconut up here, looking at the sky. So we want to take in, so those of us who take in like Gatorade and all that stuff, don't nix the Gatorade and start taking in things like coconut water. It's going to be really high in your potassium. I see people like, that's gross. Yuck. Terrible. So it's kind of a taste you have to acclimate to. You start taking it in, you get a little bit more accustomed to it, take a little more in, and all of a sudden, like a couple weeks down the road, you're like, oh, it's not gross anymore. That's weird. So you're basically just modifying your taste buds to be like, well, you know, it's not that bad.
I have a question about coconut milk
Yeah.
or water. How about the content of sugar in it?
So coconut milk doesn't necessarily have a lot of sugar in it, but water does have sugar in it. So I always recommend the coconut water for my endurance athletes who are doing a lot of running, or my athletic protocol athletes. So if we're on a weight loss protocol, I'll probably mix the coconut water as well.
Okay.
Coconut milk is going to be okay. And coconut water, there's a lot of brands out there. You want to get the ones without the added sugar. So like we have Vita Coco back there, which is just coconut water. That's what you want. You don't want the ones that have like cane sugar and like 27 other sugars, and then at the end, in like little tiny letters, is coconut water. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay, that was almost coconut water. Oh. Or the big cans like this, they're like this much sugar and then that much coconut water on top. The next thing, coconut milk is really, really good. You want to get coconut milk that's not full of sugar. I think So Delicious has a pretty good brand. Nobody should drink it out of the can because you'll be like, oh, I can't do this. It's horrible. I've tried it. It doesn't turn out very well. Really hard to drink because it's like drinking sauce thing. Yeah. So yeah, you can cook with it, but get the stuff in the carton if you're going to drink coconut milk. It's a really good alternative to dairy if you're like, what am I going to do without my milk? I'm going to fall apart. And coconut milk tends to have calcium and all that in it, so the women are always concerned about that. That'll help out quite a bit. It's the reason we like coconut milk so much is it's rich in medium-chain triglycerides. So MCTs tend to act like glucose in the body. They don't metabolize and store like a fat. They tend to get used as an energy source rather quickly. The saturated fats in the MCTs are mostly lauric acid. So that's going to raise your HDL, your good cholesterol, or your small particles. And it's going to lower your bad cholesterol. So it tends to be pretty good. And then finally, look for unsweetened. If you're using a drinkable coconut milk, don't ever get the stuff that's sweetened. Because even though it tastes like sugar, it's probably not so good for you. Oils. So next thing, we always have to talk about oils for cooking because everybody likes to cook with oils. For my weight loss protocol people, we like to be really, really light on the oils as it can cause a hindrance in your weight loss as well. But if you're going to use oils, coconut oil is pretty good for cooking. I really like it for all kinds of cooking. I cook my eggs in it. Anything I can actually use, I'll drink coconut milk or oil in the morning. Pretty good. It's like taking an MCT oil, but it's not like $1 million for a little bottle. So coconut oil is it's a cheaper alternative to MCT oil, and it contains MCTs. So it's like a win-win for everyone. Olive oil, I don't generally recommend it for a lot of high heat cooking, and a lot of that tends to break down and cause a lot of release of things like free radicals, a little bit of oxidative problems associated with that. It's okay if you're going to put it on your salad. It's delicious on a salad, just as long as it's not being cooked with. And finally, lard or ghee, pretty good for cooking. Everybody loves lard, right? At first, it's always like, no, you're weird. But after you cook with it for a while, it becomes delicious. You're just eating animal fats, and it's amazing. The Eskimos survive off of ghee and all that, so you can make your own ghee. Just search on Google, ghee recipe. Use your Google foo.
Are you making
or
your own lard too? Or
you can make your own lard.
But you buy
just
it?
animal fat. I usually just buy it. It's a little easier to purchase it.
Take it out.
And then sleep. Who here sleeps like 8 hours a night, every night? There's usually 0 hands up. I think we have 2. That's awesome. So sleep. You want to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night, depending on how you feel. Some people can sleep a little bit less and wake up refreshed, and they're like, I'm awesome, I'm fine. Some people sleep 6 hours, and then the whole next day they're just like this. And you're a zombie. So you want to kind of sleep in that range, 6 to 8 hours. If you go outside of that, you want to kind of try to adjust things in your life that can make you sleep more, because sleep is going to be one of your #1 hindrances in weight loss. Sleep issues are related to cortisol issues. Cortisol is related to belly fat, or the little tired tummy spot. So if you have this and it won't go away, it's related to a stress hormone, cortisol usually, and that's associated with lack of sleep or overtraining in our exercise. So if you're on that Stairmaster for 17 hours a day, probably cut that back a little bit too. Finally, I like you guys to read a really, really good book I've been recommending for years, since I don't know when it came out, like a long time ago. But it's Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, Survival by T.S. Wiley. It's a really, really good book. It talks about everything in this slide, but in a lot more detail. If you want to know about sleep issues and problems we have with it, I would pick that up right away. You can get it on Amazon for almost nothing now, probably. So, that next thing, sleep deprivation tends to mimic the aging process. The more sleep deprived you are, the more chronic it becomes, the older you start to look. So what happens is, when you're sleep deprived, you get more ghrelin and less leptin. Ghrelin is a hormone that signals the body to eat. So when you're sleep deprived, you eat more. When you're not sleep deprived and you're sleeping well, your body signals leptin, which tells your body not to eat. So when you're sleeping well, you're not going to be hungry as much. Unless you're like on the competitive athletic protocol, then you're just hungry 24/7. It's a curse. Finally, I like to put this in here because it's just a fun fact. Shift work is listed as a carcinogen by the CDC, so that stuff destroys you. If you're in it, it's tough. You just have to kind of learn to adapt to it. Change your cycles based on when you work. So when you go to work, it's like your morning. When you get home, that's like your evening. Your day is completely different than most people. Supplements. Everybody always asks about what we recommend to supplement with. Magnesium, I recommend everybody to take. We're always deficient in magnesium. If you can't sleep at night and you're waking up in the middle of the night, you have anxiety issues, or you just can't go to bed, that's usually due to magnesium deficiency. Because magnesium is found in the leafy greens, the chlorophyll molecule of the leafy greens. It's also found in nuts. But we have to take in so much of that. We generally are all, I would say 95% of us are probably deficient in it. So I've gotten people off of things like Ambien and a bunch of other pills that help people sleep just by supplementing with magnesium. It's amazing how well this stuff works. You want to take it before bed, usually about 30 minutes before, and as soon as you take it, you just start going like, and you pass out. But you wake up refreshed. You don't wake up tired and groggy like if you took a sleeping pill or anything like that. It's pretty amazing how well it works. I always tell people, because it tends to be a diuretic as well, so you don't want to wake up the next day and be like, oh, I can't go to work. So you want to start with about 5. We always recommend Natural Calm. It's in a little container. We have it up front. It's a powder. You put it in hot water, and it's just a hot tea before you go to bed, so it's really nice to take in. It's a little more bioavailable in the powder form. So we recommend Natural Calm, but we want you to start with 500 milligrams for the first week. For the second week, you can go up by 500 milligrams until you get to about 2 grams. If you take 2 grams right off the bat, it's going to be a rough day the next day. So you're going to want to ease into the magnesium intake.
So eventually you do get a
Yeah.
tolerance.
Yeah, so eventually, once you're probably about 4 weeks in, you can take 2 grams and you're fine.
Okay.
Is that more than the recommended on the natural calm?
No, 2 grams is the natural calm
That's the
recommended,
recommended,
yeah.
okay.
So the next thing,
Are we getting this information in our book?
yeah, so it's all in your little athlete guides, the Puff to Tough challenge guides we made for everybody. Pretty much all the information is in there. The supplement guide, the weight loss protocol, the athletic protocol. You get a 30-day meal plan, all the meals, snack ideas. So you'll be set, yeah. And if you want a copy of this, everyone, I'll just email it to you guys. Just shoot me an email. Finally, so we always worry about calcium, like I'm going to die with no calcium because paleo diet is often associated with lower calcium intake, but you're going to get it from a lot of your vegetables. And also, one thing we want to look at is high calcium intake impairs magnesium absorption. Magnesium is really, really important for bone health, and our society takes in a lot of calcium, but we also have the highest rates of osteoporosis in the world. So there's something wrong there. So when we cut back our calcium, we don't take as much in as supplements. We take more magnesium and vitamin D, and we tend to have higher bone density and bone health. It's pretty amazing. Magnesium's also been shown to protect against heart disease. So it's the same thing as just kind of your fish oil idea. So fish oil, this is the next thing we recommend everybody take. Fish oil is really, really important. You take fish oil unless you're eating fish 3 or 4 times a week. If you're eating fish 3 or 4 times a week, you're a pretty awesome person. If not, we need to supplement with fish oil to reduce that potential for inflammation. We want to make sure that omega-3, omega-6 ratio is pretty much in line. So by supplementing with fish oil, we can increase that omega-3 content. I like liquid fish oil the best. I think it's more bioavailable when you take it in than a pill. It doesn't taste bad. Everybody always thinks it's going to taste like you're eating a fish or something. It tastes like, usually it's lemon flavored or orange flavored, and it just tastes like eating a lemon drop or something like that. It's pretty delicious.
Is that one of
Just
the
take it
brands
in a
you
shot
have?
glass. Yeah.
Okay.
We have some fish oil coming in on Monday, so we'll have it available too. So we always recommend Carlson's, Nordic Naturals, Stronger, Faster, Healthier. There's a lot of liquid brands out there that are pretty good. The number one thing though you want to look for when getting a fish oil is it third-party tested? Not tested by the company, because then they're just like, oh yeah, it's awesome, we tested it. You want them to actually search out a third party, pay for the testing, and then get the results back with them having no control over it. That's how you know it's going to be good fish oil. The pills, sometimes you want to make sure it's a good brand. We like Costco. Costco has a really good brand of fish oil for the pills. So does Pure Pharma. The pills, you can sometimes break them open and smell them and they're rancid. So you want to make sure they're third party tested. So we recommend the Costco and the Pure Pharma if you're going to do a pill. But overall, I think liquid is going to be your best bet. Yes?
With the liquid, do you still burp fish oil?
No. So you burp fish oil a lot because it's a little bit rancid when you take it in.
Okay.
When you get the good brands, and especially with the liquid, you don't burp it up. You just
Okay.
take it in and you're just like, oh yeah, that was delicious. I would take this whole bottle right now. And that's a terrible idea. So fish oil, we like it because it's anti-inflammatory and it's going to protect against things like heart disease. It's going to reduce your body's level of inflammation. So your joints aren't going to hurt as bad a lot of the time, and you're going to just feel healthy and refreshed a lot more when you take the fish oil. And especially for our competitive athletes, and as you age, it becomes more and more important. We also want you to look at the total EPA plus DHA when you're looking at the fish oil, because usually you'll get the container. If you get the pills, the liquid's usually on the back. You'll look on the back, it says EPA, DHA. You want to take those two numbers, add them together, and that's your total fish oil content. Not what it says on the front of the bottle. Because it'll be, say, like fish oil, oh yeah, 10,000 milligrams or something. And then you look on the back and there's like 4 grams of EPA plus DHA. So you want to make sure that you get a good amount. But just those two. Don't look at anything else. Just EPA and DHA. And you want the EPA and DHA to be about a 50-50. The DHA is always going to be lower, but the better you can get to a 50-50 ratio, the better off you'll be. Finally, a lot of people ask me about, well, what can I do if I want to take in a vegetarian fish oil? I always tell them, well, you're going to have to take a lot of it in, because with the vegetarian fish oil, you have to convert the ALA, which is the omega-3 found in vegetarian-style fish oil from like flax and all that stuff. ALA has to convert to your DHA and EPA, and that conversion process is probably about 3% efficient. So you pretty much lose all of it. So your fish is the best way to go. Yes?
So what about like chia and...
So chia, we don't want it. Those are
no?
the same thing, yeah. Fish is better.
Because it's got the omegas and it's got the blah, 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 blah.
So what chia is going to have to convert from ALA to DHA, so you'll lose most of it in that conversion process. If people are allergic to fish, because I've had this question before, I always recommend algal oil. It's just an algae oil. It's what the fish eat and convert. It's your best bet next to a meaty fish oil. Next supplement we recommend everybody take is vitamin D. But this is the easiest and cheapest supplement because you just go stand outside for 20 minutes. Your body's going to absorb all the vitamin D, you're going to utilize it, and you're set. So if you sit outside for 15, 20 minutes a day, you're going to get all the vitamin D you need, and you don't need to supplement with anything. If not, you want to get around 1,200 IUs, or you can sit in a tanning bed for 5 to 10 minutes. The tanning bed's not going to, don't sit in there for like 3 hours and kill you, bake yourself, or you're like, oh yeah, look at my eyes. So what you want to do is sit in there for 5 to 10 minutes. You're going to get the rays that same thing you get from the sun. Sometimes that's a good thing to do during winter when we don't have a lot of sun exposure and we're walking around like this all the time. Or when you're on the beach because everybody tells you to wear sunscreen, so you have to walk on the beach like this too and not show your skin. And wear long pants and sunscreen. So sunscreen's important, but before you put the sunscreen on, if you're out in the sun, get about that 10 to 15 minutes of sun exposure and then put on the sunscreen. If we put on an SPF 30, it reduces the vitamin D you're going to absorb by about 95%. So your sunscreen basically negates any benefit from the sun that you're going to get in the form of vitamin D. Vitamin D is important for absorption of calcium and phosphate. So if you're taking in all that calcium and no vitamin D, you're not going to absorb the calcium. So it's really, really important to have that intake of vitamin D. And we have low rates of vitamin D in the US because we don't go outside. We're all afraid to die because the sun will hit us and we'll melt. We're vampires. So it's really important for bone health as well. And then just remember, tanning booth, sun #1, tanning booth #2, and then #3, a pill if you have to. Any kind of pill will do. I've had a lot of success with a brand called Solgar. It tends to be free of all of our negative effects like gluten, soy, any of that stuff. Next, a probiotic's a pretty good idea. I like everybody to take it in because your gut health is what you are. Your bacteria makes you what you're going to be. So a probiotic is pretty important for intestinal diversity in your bacterial in the intestines. They're going to reduce the potential for growth of harmful organisms. So the reason we get sick is because the harmful organisms overgrow in our body and then they take over and make us sick. And then your good organisms, your probiotic organisms, have to fight them, so it's just a constant battle. It's like battle of the microorganisms. World war never ending. So they help control inflammatory responses, they help control your kind of inflammation issues, they help control a lot of autoimmune issues. Your gut bacteria really, really make a huge difference in who you are and what you are. That's called a duck walk. We practiced that. It's really exciting. Everybody's good at it. So when you look at your probiotics, you want to make sure it's 8 billion CFUs. And those are colony forming units. Anything below that is probably not going to be enough diversity to really do anything. You want to look for products with lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. So they're really, really common. It's a common gut organism for humans. If it doesn't have that in, it's probably not worth taking. Quality strains are going to have kind of a number after it. So like on here, B-lactis BS01. Just means they took that strain, they made it their own, and they trademarked that strain, so you know it's always going to be consistent with what it is. One brand we recommend is Jarrow. They usually make a really good product. The other brand that's really good is Chris Kresser. If you go to chriskresser.com, he has some really good fish oils on his little online store. Prebiotics. So prebiotics and probiotics. It's like, what's the difference? What is it? It's before the pro, but I don't know what the pre means. So prebiotic is basically food for the microorganisms in your gut. So if you consume a prebiotic plus a probiotic, you're going to be feeding the microorganisms and they're going to have a bigger potential to survive. They're also going to grow and reproduce a lot quicker with the food. You're going to get, that Jarrow brand it's called prebiotic FOS plus whatever. FOS is your prebiotic. So there's a bunch of different ones. They're really, really long words. I wrote some of them in here. They're basically digestion-resistant carbohydrates, and like I said, they're going to stimulate growth. Bifidobacteria and lactobacillus is the ones we want to stimulate to grow a lot. Major types that we have are inulin, inulin-type fructans, galactoligosaccharides, and fructooligosaccharides, and then lactulose. You can say those like 17 times fast. You're like, I don't know what just happened. Yes?
So the probiotic yogurts and stuff, we're not to take those?
We should not take those because they're usually just full of sugar. It's just like eating a cube of sugar.
So how would one find, is it this in a pill or is it a liquid, or how would one find
So they have
this?
them in powders and pills. You can get them from fermented foods, so I always recommend people take in fermented foods, like sauerkraut, all that fun stuff. Kimchi, I know everybody likes kimchi. It's like a spicy coleslaw.
Cabbage.
Asian thing, yeah, cabbage. Steph eats